Students, today's video is about environment, the word environment. This is a word that where the pronunciation is very different from the spelling. You have to think about it. It looks like se ve como environment, right? But that's not what we say. We say environment. So this part right here is pronounced vire, which I know is nothing like the letters that are here. All I can tell you is English is crazy. English is crazy, but that's how you say it. Envire, and then the N is completely silent, makes no sound. So you say environment, and yeah, do not say the N there. Environment. That's how people usually say that word. The environment. And environment can be in this case, in this sentence, it's talking about, like in Spanish, el medio ambiente. So it's like the natural world. And then there's another meaning, which we'll see on the next card. So, the next slide, I mean. So in this one, this is talking about a very famous book from the early 1960s by a writer named Rachel Carson, who was a natural, I think she was like a biologist, but also a writer. And she wrote this Silent Spring because there was a chemical that they used to use to kill mosquitoes. They wanted to kill mosquitoes because mosquitoes spread malaria, which is a really bad disease that now they have some medicine for it, but for a long time there was no medicine for it. It could kill people. So they went to get rid of malaria, they killed the mosquitoes. They killed the mosquitoes by spraying this chemical called DDT. But what the scientists discovered is that that chemical would also kill birds because birds would eat the mosquitoes and then they would get lots of this chemical in their bodies and they would die. And so the title of the book, Silent Spring, is she's saying if we keep going like this with using this chemical, then all the birds will die. And someday in the spring, it will be silent because there will be no song of the birds anymore. There will be no sound of the birds anymore. That's what the title of her book refers to. And it describes the book describes the harmful effects of pesticides. Pesticides are chemicals that kill pests, things that humans don't want, like insects that we don't want. And she described the harmful effects of pesticides on the environment and el medio ambiente. So it's like people think they're just killing the mosquito, but in fact, it has many bigger effects. It kills other animals. So, and because of her book, a few years later, that chemical was made illegal. You can't use it anymore in the United States. So it was a very famous book, also because it really started the modern environmental movement, I think. Like after that book, that was a big thing that started people thinking we need to protect the environment, and it led up to Earth Day, the first Earth Day in 1970. So it was an important book in history. And so anyway, long explanation, but that book talks about the effects of pesticides on the environment. And again, I said the environment is the whole natural world, including all the animals and plants and where they live. That's the environment. So going on to the next slide, here we see the two definitions. So the definition that I already talked about is actually definition 2, but we also have definition 1. So definition 1, it says the conditions that affect the behavior and development of somebody or something, or the physical conditions that somebody or something exists in. So this one, we can think about it a lot like affect the behavior and development of somebody or something. So like you can think about if you're talking about why people behave in a certain way, why do people do certain things? You can say, well, this person is like this because of the things that the experiences that that person had in his or her life. So the conditions that that person lived in when they were developing, like growing up, that's a big thing. We use it a lot. We talk about like environment, like home environment. Like for example, if somebody is in a family where there's domestic violence or something, that's a difficult environment to grow up in, and it can affect the person's behavior or development. That's an example of that. Not a happy example, but that's using that word. So yeah, the conditions that affect the behavior and development of somebody or something, or the physical conditions that somebody or something exists in. So that would just be, well, like for example, we talk about in the next slide, it's going to talk about the classroom environment in a classroom. So that's like, what's the physical space that students are in when they're in class? It's their classroom environment. And the people, administrators in a school will tell teachers you need to make a good classroom environment, and teachers want to do that too, so that it's pleasant for students when they're in there, when they're in the room. And definition 2, I already said, is the natural world in which people, animals, and plants live. And so it says here, Spanish translations, ambiente for definition 1, medio ambiente for definition 2. Word families, environmental, that's related to, can be either one as an adjective. Environmentalist, an environmentalist is a person who believes that it's important to protect the natural world, and usually who is an activist in politics to try to change laws and things to make to protect the natural world. That's an environmentalist. And then environmentally, as I've said before, ly is an adverb ending. It means mente. So you can talk about things like environmentally friendly, like friendly to the environment, things like that. Synonym for environment, surroundings or atmosphere. I feel like those are both synonyms for definition 1, not really definition 2 so much. Okay, let's look at some sentences that use these definitions in more detail. So the first one is talking about in a classroom. So it says, student disposition and active participation affect a class's learning environment. So yeah, the teacher can make a room that looks nice, but that goes only so far. Students also have to participate in class, and disposition means, wanting to, like your attitude. It's like your attitude. So we have to want to be in class, and you have to participate, and that makes the environment of the class for everybody better. If everybody there has a positive attitude and wants to participate, it makes a good learning environment for the whole class. So it means it makes good conditions for the whole class to learn, or a good space for the class to exist in, we could say. So that's what this definition, the learning environment. And then definition 2, as I said, is about the natural world. So and here it says the environment can be preserved by recycling plastics and other recyclable materials. Yeah, so that's one important thing that people can do to help the environment, because if we don't do that, then all that plastic and tin can, aluminum cans, and everything piles up in the trash, and also it means that we're making more, and if we're making more, that's bad for example, global warming, because it uses more resources to make all that. So that's a reason why the environment can be preserved by recycling. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and that's it for this week's vocabulary.